time job opportunity. So I never had to interview before Zynga. But once things did not work out in Zynga, I was like, okay, I need to change jobs, and I found the interview process to be very, very tedious. I interviewed at many companies. I didn't get the offer. Very demotivating at some point. Uh, but then I eventually realized there are a few tips and tricks that you can use, but most of all, it was about consistency. And since past 2 years, I've been trying to help as many developers as I can to succeed in their uh, interview or job search, and that's what this cohorts are about. Here are a few success stories. People have got into Google Bolt recently. A couple of them got into Robinhood before they had the layoffs and hiring freeze. Uh, so what will this cohort help achieve? The cohort has a lot of plan and structure in place. You will not have to think about what I need to solve. You will not have to think about, what should how should I prepare for interviews. I will help you all along the way. I'll give as much information as I can, and help you course correct in case if something is not working out. uh, the cohort helps you keep accountable. Like every day, I will make sure that you make progress. That is a promise. If you are not making progress, you will realize it within 2 or 3 days, and you will either say that, hey, maybe this is not a good time for me to do the cohort, or you will try to find more time to work on the problems. It covers a wide range of topics. If you are familiar with the U.S. interview, and I'll go over that in more details. U.S. interview sessions, they usually tend to cover a lot of data structures, algorithms, system design, and that's what this cohort focuses on. And I'm always available to answer questions. I'm very active on Slack, so anytime you have questions, you just post it, and you will get answer within few hours, unless I'm sleeping. Uh, so before I talk about the cohort, I think it's important to understand what the interview process is, and how you can make it easy for yourself to pass these interviews. The interviews are not perfect. Like any other things, Google, Microsoft, these are big companies. They figured out a process that works for them. For them, the problem is that when they post a job, they get thousands of applicants. So they have a filtering problem, and they have these interviews so that they can filter out candidates who are not a good match. But what ended up happening is, because they do so much research and spend so much money, every other company was like, oh, they're doing it, so we will also do it. And they adopted the same process. But unfortunately, that doesn't work because every other company gets only 20 applicants. But here we are with the interview process that we have. The interview process usually has one phone screen or two phone screens. They might have a take-home coding test. Uh, they will have 2 to 3 coding rounds, one system design, and one behavioral. Let me know again, if something's not clear, if it is too much information, and I'm happy to pause and explain more. And as an engineer, it does not matter what level you're on. Even if with my experience, if someone who is senior to me, who is 17 years of experience, goes for an interview, they are required to code. There is no getting away out of that. You have to demonstrate that you have the ability to code, because we are hired as software engineers. And then, based on the levels, you get like system design and then behavioral questions, which change from like a software engineer to senior software engineer to principal engineer. The best way to think about interview to be good at interviews is to think like an interviewer. Most good interviewers are looking for this 5 things when they're interviewing you. The first one is problem solving. Like, hey, if I give you a logical problem, are you able to solve it? Solve it meaning, it doesn't matter optimized, non-optimized. Can you just solve the problem in a logical way? Basically breaking down the problem. The problem might seem very big, but how do you break it down into small components and try to solve each component on its own? Because we are, dealing with computers, there are some fundamentals. Like you can't just solve a problem the way human mind solves it. You have to solve it with data structures. You have to be in the constraints, and that's what the fundamental knowledge is. Like, do you know the data structures well? Do you know the language you are coding in well? Like, do you know the restrictions and constraints? That is what the fundamental is. The third one, which is most likely the hardest for everyone, is once you think of a solution, how do you convert that to code? Because that is you have a lot of constraints over there, and that is what this converting from pseudocode to code is. Uh, while it is the hardest thing, the good news is the easiest to solve, and the way to solve it is by doing more problems. The more problems you do, it just becomes very natural to you to write that kind of code. Uh, the next thing, which again changes from level to level, is understanding trade-offs. So for example, if you're solving a problem, let's say, which has two for loops, you will realize that, okay, this is inefficient, it is going to take much longer time, and the time complexity will be n square. You can solve it probably using a hash map, but now you're giving up space, right? So there's a trade-off that you're making, and it's important to realize that trade-off. And it's important to make sure that the interviewer knows that, okay, I know why I'm making this trade-off. And the final one is communication. If you are an excellent engineer, but if it's hard for you to express your ideas or communicate, it's going to be hard for your team to understand what you're doing. And most of the time, your business problems are much more complex than this interview problems. So it's very important to have that fluid conversation, and that is what the interviewer is looking for. Any questions I can answer before I move on? Okay. So the next one is Leetcode. So I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but Leetcode.com is basically a website which is very famous in US and Asia Pacific. What they have done is essentially they have these questions which are created by community, by them, and then they ask the community, like, hey, was this asked in this company? Was it asked in that company? And their problems are so well defined and so small that they seem to be fitting very well for the interviews. And this is what we are going to be using for, these are the problem sets that we will be using mostly for our entire cohort. So it has become a name that people use, like, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to Google this, they say, why don't you Leetcode this problem? So it's there are about 2,500 questions on Leetcode. So obviously you can't solve all of them because it's going to take you forever to do that. So how do we reduce the number of problems that we solve? One is you split them by topics. That I'm going to do arrays, then I'm going to do graphs, I'm going to do trees, I'm going to do math. But even then, if there are only few 10 topics, you still have 250 problems per topic. So there are these patterns. There are some patterns that each of this Leetcode problem has, and it's important. And the way to optimize your efforts is by doing pattern recognition. Humans are very good with patterns recognition. So if you do enough problems of patterns, you will be able to realize that, oh, this problem is very similar to this pattern. There's a sliding window pattern, or there is, BFS, breadth first search, or depth first search, like which one applies where. The more problems you do, the more naturally these instincts will kick in. And and there are about, I think there are about 14 to 20 patents. We'll go over most, like 14 patents at the most in 8-week cohort. But I will give you information about other ones as well, and I'll also cover why we are not doing that. But again, the bottom line is that it all comes to pattern recognition, which comes with practice. So this is a mistake that I made when I was interviewing, when I was practicing for interviews. What I did was I would look at the problem. Let's say I would try to solve it. If I could not solve it, I would go to, I'll try to find the solution which people have posted and be like, now I understand. And then I would go to the next problem. But here is a problem. After 3 days, I will forget how to solve that, because it's not like I have understood logically, but it's still not, the pattern is still not very clear to me. So the best way to gauge is to compile and run the problem completely. That is what is expected of you in the interview. You cannot just talk the problem. You cannot just say that, oh, this is how I would solve it, write pseudocode, and then assume that you have done well. You have to be able to code and run the problem. So throughout our cohort, this is what we are going to focus on. Like every problem that you claim to be complete in the cohort has to run and successfully compile on Leetcode. You have to mention time and space complexities. If you remember previously, I mentioned that there's something about trade-offs, that, are you making the right trade-off? And you cannot make a trade-off if you don't know what are you giving up, which is the time and space complexities. That's how we gauge an algorithm. How good is the algorithm? How good is the code you wrote? So make it a second nature to you. Like when you solve the problem, you have to know the time and space complexity, so that you can tell the interviewer, like, do I want to improve it? Do I not want to improve it? This is the best I can do, or which areas should you improve it? So these are the two things that we'll focus on for every problem. Does Leetcode determine space complexity of the algorithm? No. So the way Leetcode, it kind of tries to do that, but it actually doesn't work. What it does is when you submit a problem on Leetcode, it tells you like, hey, your problem took 10 milliseconds and was using 20 MB of memory. That's an indication, but it does not indicate the time and space complexity. It just tells you how fast your code is running. It depends on a lot of things, right? Because it depends on their execution environment. Their execution environment might be very busy, so it took a lot more time. Their code is, they have a wrapper around the code which is taking more memory, so that's why your code took more memory. And it's also language dependent. Like for example, Java tends to have immutable strings. So if I keep on creating strings, then my memory is going to be very high. So those subtle differences are not really clear on leetcode.com. The time and space complexities that an interviewer is looking for are the big O's, like, hey, this is O of n, this is O of n squared, this is O of log n. And that Leetcode will not help you determine that. So now we are jumping. This is about the interview process. Any questions so far? Now I'm jumping into the cohort details. Okay. So in the cohort, I ask everyone to check in daily. Now, what does that mean? I will demonstrate a small bot that I have on Slack, but essentially every day you will have set of tasks to do, except for 1 or 2 days, and you are required to check in saying that did you complete that task. The reason for this is like, if you do, hey, I have not done task for today, I'm not doing task for tomorrow. If you do that 3 days, you're going to feel bad about it, and you're going to be like, okay, I need to either find time or I need to like not do this cohort. So this keeps you accountable, and me along with the community will help you keep accountable, because you will be checking in daily. If you do not check in, I will remind you. I will ping you on Slack to make sure that you're checking in daily. Now, the daily check-ins happen daily, but there's also weekly check-in, which helps you plan. So every Sunday, I ask everyone that you check in how many hours can you work for next week. If you say that, hey, my week is busy, I have family events coming up, I have my kid's birthday party, completely fine. But make sure you plan for that. That way, you can say that this week I'm going to work 5 hours, but next week I will make it up to 15 hours. So that's why I have weekly check-in in there. And most of the people who are successful in my cohort, they actually do this every day. Um, and you will find it very useful once you start doing it. Even like I said, even if you're unable to practice, like let's say, something came up, you are on call, or some work came up where you had to work extra hours, check in. It's absolutely okay to say that, hey, I could not spend even a single hour or a single minute on this because I had some work. But check in to make sure that you realize that this is going below in your priority list. Any questions? How many hours by day? Uh, the the cohort is designed to put in 8 hours a week. But like I said, things happen. Sometimes you might have to put 5. Sometimes you might be able to put 15 because you have time to catch up. So I try to. The cohort is designed around 8 hours on an average, but again, some topics might be very easy for you, so you can put less time. Some topics might be hard, and you might have to put more time. And again, if I feel that, hey, the entire cohort is spending more than like 8 or 10 hours, I will actually try to like give a rest day or give a catch up day so that people can take it a little easy. I don't want this to become, I don't want this to make your life more challenging than it already is. But the answer is like 8 hours a week is required, not 8 hours a day. Sorry, 8 hours a week is required. So I'll go over each of these things, like what the structure is, what the problems are, the behavioral part, reading list, catch-up days. So problems. On problems, I suggest that everyone have a 30-minute time limit. Do not look at solutions until 30 minutes. So 30 minutes for medium problems and 15 minutes for easy problems. I will mention this once you join the cohort as well. Every day, the task I give you will also have these details. So don't worry if you don't remember it. But don't give a problem only 2 minutes and look at the solution, because that's not going to help. Try to solve the problem. Try to come up with as many different approaches as you can, because that will help you in your interviews as well. In your interviews, you're not going to have access to the solutions for 30 minutes. So you might as well just try getting used to that. We'll cover different type of patterns, and there are 14 different patterns, like I mentioned. We'll cover all of them. There are two type of problems. One is pod. I call it problem of the day. This is usually easy problems. These are usually there to get you used to that pattern or that topic. So let's say we are starting with trees for the first time. Most pod problems will be easy, so that you can practice them, not get overwhelmed because the concept is new. But I also include another question, which is pod plus, which is usually a medium problem. So if you are really good with trees and you're like, hey, I'm able to solve medium easy problems, challenge yourself to do a medium ones. So they are optional. Sometimes I also have them select like, hey, either pick pod or pod plus. Do note that for your interviews, at least in the US, you are required, like you need to get better with pod plus or mediums to actually crack the interview, because those are the questions that are mostly asked. Easy ones are also asked, but I would say 70 to 75% of the chance is medium questions. And also to make sure that everyone is progressing, I also start adding medium problems as pods once we get used to the topic, so that you're not always solving easy problems. When you're writing code, no autocomplete. You will not get autocomplete in your interviews. So let's just have that same environment. That way, we get used to what tools are given to us. No IntelliSense or no syntax highlighting. If you write on Leetcode directly, it will already have this option for you. You can either use Sublime or Visual Studio, but I would suggest just use Leetcode because I have a browser plugin that can help you keep the timer. So it has a timer on top and can help you show like, hey, how much time you're taking for this problem. So that's about it. Any questions over here?
Any specific language?
I would say that's a good question. I would say pick a language of your choice and stick to that. I don't enforce any language. I'm not good with every language, but I can, read the code that you're writing, and every code that you write will actually be posted on Slack channels. So, everyone can see it, and also I can see it. I also try to comment on that, but you can pick any language. My usual recommendation is pick a language that you're comfortable with so that you don't have to learn a new language when you're actually doing interviews. Um, I hope that answers the question. Okay, so then I put for every day, again, this is, I put a required task. I'm hoping most people know basic data structures and algorithms. Like, if you're very new, then this cohort might actually not be a good idea. The cohort moves at a very specific pace. Uh, the data structures and algorithms, I usually try to introduce them a little bit earlier. So like, let's say today we are doing arrays and strings, but in 3 days we are going to do linked list. I will have few links in there so that you can go and read about linked list just to refresh your memory. Like, what is this? And I try to have linked list for like 2 days. So, you don't have to spend like 1 hour to read linked list. You can split it across like multiple days. I also include like system design. This is an optional thing. I would highly recommend that you at least read as much as you can because this takes time. But most of the time, unless you're coming fresh out of university, you will be asked some sort of system design question. It might be object-oriented programming, like, hey, let's do a class design, or microservice architecture, or database schema design, or multiple different architectures, depending on your level. But you will always have one round, and once you get to like senior level, this is the differentiating factor. This is what differentiates you from someone who has no experience or less experience. A code written by a principal level engineer versus a code written by someone out of school, especially with the Leetcode style questions, can only be different in certain ways. Like, it can't be that different because the code is very small. But system design is what differentiates your level. So even if you can't catch up with this cohort in system design, make sure you do keep reading them. And I will provide some books that I feel are really good, that cover this, and refresh your memory, if you want to do those. Uh, any questions before I go into behavioral? Okay. So if you remember, I said there is one round of behavioral questions. So behavioral question, it essentially determines like how much, as an engineer, like how broad do you think? Like, are you very technically focused, or do you think about systems outside? And can you work with product managers? Can you work with artists, for example? In when I was in games, I used to work with like 5 different people: product manager, there was a game designer, there was a sound, and there was an artist, and there was a producer. So not everyone understands technical stuff, so you have to like talk in different languages that everyone can understand. And these behavioral questions are along those lines, like how big of a system can you develop, how do you find out about requirements, do you figure out that, oh, I went wrong, like we designed a system but something did not work, do you retrospect that? So the the these are by far the easiest, and I feel the one mistake that everyone does is they do not prepare for this, because the internal thinking is like, oh, I just have to talk about what I have worked on, that shouldn't be too hard, I remember everything. But the problem is they usually squeeze this in, you either have one complete behavioral round or you have like 10 minutes in every interview. So in 10 minutes, you want all this points all the work that you have done to be in your mind, right? You don't want to think for a minute in like 10 minutes because you're wasting that minute. So it's what I highly suggest people is write it down. Like every work that you have on your resume, just write down the key details and try to map it to the company you're going to. So if you're going to, let's say, Facebook has one key culture, which is move fast, right? They really value moving fast. So what you want to do is you essentially want to find a project on your resume which demonstrates that quality. It might be like, oh, I was on call and something broke and I had to fix that in the middle of the night, and to mitigate the issue, this is what I did. Excellent example, and then you can talk about that. But if you don't remember that, if you have not prepared for that, it's going to be hard to remember on the spot if someone asks you. And again, I can help you prepare these stories. One thing people always say is, oh, I don't have big projects on my resume. Don't worry about it. Whatever you have, work with that, and you will be okay. Any questions? Okay. So how to succeed in the cohort? Set specific, this is not required, but this is just my suggestion. Set specific time in the day to work on problems. If you say that, hey, I my job starts at 9, I can wake up at 7 and do from 7 to 8. Every day doing 7 to 8 will make it much easier for you than trying to figure out schedule every day. This is how I work, but it may or may not work for everyone. And if the entire cohort works at the same time, then I can set up some time for everyone to come together and like discuss problems, or everyone to come together online and just work together. Like no one talks, but you're just solving problems. The other thing is I have weekly check-ins. I don't enforce them, but I would highly recommend that you do those because it will help you keep in mind that, oh, I have to work like 5 hours. I have committed to 5 hours. I'm going to finish that in 5 hours. And keep your weekly check-ins, like stay on track with your daily check-ins. If you miss a day, like let's say, you fell sick or something comes up, if you miss 1, 2, 3 days, you might still be okay. If it takes longer, then talk to me and we'll figure out a way where you can catch up with the cohort. Maybe the problems that we are doing right now, we'll do it later on for you, or you might have to do a little bit on like rest day or something like that. But talk to me if you're going to miss days. Like it happens with every cohort. I have had one person recently who had to like fly to Europe for work. It was an urgent meeting, and we have a plan like once they come back how we are going to work on that. So just talk to me before if something comes up. Next, live sessions. So I try to do one live session in the cohort every week. This has been a hit or a miss, so we'll try it out with the cohort. If people like it, then we can continue. If not, then I don't want to waste time. But essentially what I do is like I pick a problem and we all discuss as a team. The goal here is that you can see everyone thinking in different ways, so you can explore a solution in many different ways. It's not to get the problem right or anything like that. It's more to have a discussion on the problem. It could be a problem, system design, behavioral. We can pick any topic. Any questions? Uh, I try to form small groups in the cohort. It doesn't matter the size of the cohort, but I try to form small groups of people, and you will do mock interviews every week. The best way to get used to like the communication and like talking when you're solving is doing mock interviews. People in my cohorts love this mock interviews. They love it so much that in this cohort I have started doing 2 mock interviews every week. It's optional, but I try to have 1 mock interview for everyone. We'll pick a day. usually will be Wednesday at 6 p.m. Your local time, and I try to match people in same time zone, and then I'll give you everything. You'll have the problem that you're required. You'll have your partner. You'll have the link to the meeting. You'll have the feedback form. All of that information will be provided to you. You just have to do a mock interview, and then the other person will mock interview you. That way, you'll get used to like communicating with other people, and just like an interview process. You don't need an interviewing experience if you've not had. It's fine. I give a nice guide on how to fill out the feedback and what to look for. There are two main tools. One is Slack, and the other is Chrome extension. The Chrome extension essentially. Wait, let me see if I can demo this. Give me a minute. Okay, so here is the Chrome extension. This is my current running cohort. Uh, you can see like these people are checking in every day, right? Like this person solved 2 problems, spent 0 hours. This person solved 4 problems. This person solved 1 problem. So essentially, you just you run this command, and again, I will provide all this information, but you have this form on Slack that you fill up, like how many problems did you solve, how many problems did you attempt, how many pods did you solve, how many hours did you spend, how many reading minutes, and all of that. And once you submit, it lets everyone in the cohort know that you have checked in. You can see this people have also committed to like working 18 hours next week. This is their own commitment. I don't enforce this commitment, but this is what the Slack group does. So you have this check-ins channel where everyone will check in, and you'll see people are checking in. And then there's this code channel, code check-in. So the browser extension is integrated with Slack. So every time you finish a problem and submit on Leetcode, it will essentially submit it to the Slack channel. So why do I do that? One is I look at code whenever I get chance. So if I feel like, hey, you have like this code is not clean, I will essentially just tag you, and I'll say, hey, maybe you should think about it this way, or maybe you can change the code a little bit here or there. The second thing is you can search like, has anyone solved this problem? And if you see like other people have solved this problem, you can reach out to them and ask for help, or ask them like, hey, how did you solve this problem, etc. Every day I will post like, what is your daily tasks? And if you go, sorry, give me one moment. If you look here, you'll see like there will be welcome to day 51. This is the problem that you're doing, and this is an optional problem. And when you click on it, it opens up Leetcode. Again, I'll go over this when our cohort starts, so please don't worry if you don't remember it. It's all good. Any questions? Okay, let me see. I think I have one last slide, and then I am done talking. So you guys can ask me any questions you want. So how can I and the community help you? If you have any questions related to the interview process, something is not clear, it need not even be the problems that I have posted. It might be just something else. Reach out to me. I'll try to help you every time. Do not directly message me. Put it in a channel so that everyone can add their thoughts, and everyone can also gain from the question you're asking. And I will definitely answer every question. If I do not answer that question, tag me. But it has not happened so far that I have not answered a question. How can you help with? If you have any resources, share it with everyone. I don't have access. I don't look at every resource out there. I might miss sometimes. Actually, many of the resources that I provide in my cohort are given by my cohort participants, because they figured out, oh, this is actually better than what I provided. So they shared it with me, and I was like, okay, this looks good. So, and please provide me feedback if something is not working, if the cohort is moving too fast, if you're not able to spend time, talk to me. I will. I'll try to be more objective and let you know like how we can either bring you on path, or maybe you need additional time on certain topics, and then we can figure out how to go from there. That's it. Final slide. I'm done. Any questions? Sorry, too much talking. Any questions?
So this is your opportunity to ask any question about the camp, or everything is super clear. Yes, no,
It's clear. Thank you.
it's clear. Thank you, Marcelo. Daniel, Daniel Chan, tell me.
Yes, hi, Monsi. Good night, Monil.
Hi.
Thank you for meeting with us. I joined a little bit late the call, so I didn't hear about the duration of the cohort and where is it going to start.
Yeah. Uh, so the one cohort is starting on May 23rd. Second date, I think Monsi would provide that. The duration of the course is between 6 to 8 weeks. The reason it's 6 to 8 weeks is because I tend to look at the cohort's pace. I want to make sure that you're confident with your progress. So if I feel that, hey, all the people are actually pretty confident after like 6 or 7 weeks, then there's no point running the cohort. But if I feel that, hey, I can give you more questions, like the current cohort needed more help, so I continued the cohort beyond 6 weeks to 8 weeks. So it's usually 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, and I have another question. So you said that we could use the programming language of our preference and any programming language that we want,
Mhm.
but I mean, even if I choose one specific programming language, but if I want to practice in more than just one language, will you provide us guidance to if it is in your domain of knowledge about the other language? Can you provide us guidance to in how to solve a specific problem, for example, using more than one language?
Yeah, I can help you. So I'll tell you, like I'm very good with C sharp, Java, C++. It might take me a little time to catch up, and I can understand JavaScript and Python. Python I know very basic. Like I'm not very good with like the very the new syntax. It might take me some time, but I can definitely help you. The only thing I would say is uh, be very objective on why you're choosing multiple languages, because it will take more time. If you're implementing in two languages, you're going to take double the time to do each question. And one medium question ends up taking between, like, if you're really good, it takes 30 minutes, but otherwise it takes like 45 minutes. So you will end up taking, an hour and a half to solve one problem, which is fine with me, but just know why you're doing that, if that answers the question.
Okay, thank you.
Also, Daniel, just for you to know, in the Awana page here, I'm gonna send to you. Is the next dates of the cohort. The first it's on start date on May 23rd, and the second is June 13th. Okay, so I think someone else raised their hand.
One.
Juan Carlos, yeah.
Hey, Monil. Thanks for your time. Just one question. I just joined a little late,
Mhm.
but I'm not so sure if, for example, one of the issues that I'm having is actually reaching out the guys. For example, if I want to apply, let's say Amazon or Google or well, Meta or whatever of the big companies, how can I actually reach the guys, you know. That's one of the points that I am missing right now, because for example, I have done like some tests, actually done some in some solving some problems in HackRank, in Leetcode, and all those platforms. But sometimes reaching the guys that make the decisions, like the first step of decision, that's the challenging part. Is this problem been uh, somehow, are you want to approach this problem in, some tips or some tricks on how to actually apply for this? Because I did it for Amazon, in fact, but I haven't heard from them. I'm sure I'm not going to be reached by these guys. So that's my question.
Got it. So the first thing I would say is like, uh, I think you should definitely talk to folks from Awana. They might have some ways to reach to other companies they're working with. If those companies are not working with Awana, then uh, one of the ways I have found is referrals. Now again, there are ways to, again, there are also sometimes it might not work, but referrals, like if you know someone in your LinkedIn or someone knows someone in LinkedIn, that's a good way to reach out. Uh, at least to apply. You if This is not to get hold of the recruiter themselves, but if no one, if you have applied and you're not hearing back, then referrals are one of the best way. The second option is on LinkedIn. You can just find like technical recruiter for Amazon, search for them, and once they show up, you can try to send them request like just add me as a friend. And in that note, you can say that, hey, I'm looking for a role in your company. Uh, this works. This has worked for me many times. Actually, the last time I found the job, this is how actually I found it. I just reached out to the recruiter and said that, oh, I see that you're looking for this role. Do you want to get in touch? And they added me on LinkedIn, and then I sent the resume. But the key is to find the right person. For me, it was easy because it was a brand new office they were setting up, and there was no other recruiter, and that person was the only one. Uh, Regarding Amazon, Amazon is usually very bad at responding. So you're not the only one facing this problem. People in the US also face this problem very frequently. Even I face that problem. So I would say like the only way is to keep finding like recruiters, and Amazon's recruiters have like different recruiters hire for different teams. So you can reach out to all of them and it would still be okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so anybody has any other question? Yes, Daniel.
Yes, thank you, Monsi. I'm not sure if you have already mentioned about this already, but by the description that you provide of your program and saying that we are going to learn or to check about object-oriented programming, system design, architecture, microservices, I get that this is more oriented like for a backend developer, or are we also going to see something about maybe front-end developer? I mean, will it be helpful for someone looking for a full stack position too?
I think this will be helpful for full stack position, and thank you for pointing that out. This is geared. This Well, the content that I had from my previous ones was geared more towards backend because that's how my cohort was. But it depends on the current cohort. If I feel that, hey, everyone is looking for more full stack positions, then many of these things will go away. Like for example, for full stack, you actually don't need like batch processing and streaming, uh, asset properties, or uh, indexing and partitioning and all that. Like you don't need those level of details. So I might pull those out and replace them with like more front end. One caveat to know is that uh, I am a full stack engineer. So if you have very front end questions, like if you're a front end engineer, then I might not be a good source to answer those questions. If you have full stack questions, that I will definitely be able to answer. And if you have back end questions, I'm pretty confident I can answer those questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Marcelo.
Hi, Manil. Thank you so much. Just I have a question related to the behavioral assessment.
Mhm.
Or, I mean, this plan involves to have a little bit more, use cases in the behavior evaluation or something like that. I mean, what is most important for in this program? The behavioral questions, the evaluation, or the technical part?
So so the behavioral questions again are not like I don't mark them as required. It's just to encourage everyone to keep preparing on the behavioral because I feel like it's one of the most neglected one. The cohort will be highly technical. I would say 95% will be technical. 5% will be behavioral. But again, behavioral is an optional thing, which I put it in there as a task to do so that it's one of the things on your mind and you don't neglect it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Álvaro. Go ahead.
I think you're on mute, Alvaro.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Monil. Thanks, Monty. Monil, I'm going to have a technical interview the next week, and they explain me. Um, I'm going to have a pseudocode, and I have to solve the challenge and explain to the team how to solve. And they're going to evaluate how I explain and how I solve. I have not idea because I didn't do it a technical interview. But I figured out and I study design patterns and cleaning code. I don't know if I have to focus on that, or my question is, what can I expect on that tech interview, and what do you recommend me to focus for this uh, test?
So if I understood you correctly, are they going to give you a pseudocode that you have to explain to them?
Exactly.
Okay.
To the same.
So I think what they would probably be looking for is once they give you the pseudocode, they will ask you to code it up. The pseudocode will most likely not have the data structures in them. It'll have the algorithm. It will tell you like, hey, this is what the algorithm is doing. Like think about merge sort, right? I will explain you what the merge sort is doing, but I will not tell you how you're going to like have multiple arrays and how you're going to shift elements, and that's what you need to figure out. So I think data structures will be the thing that they will ask you for sure. uh, if they ask you to write code, it's definitely, can you write code, and second is like how clean the code is. So if the problem is, if the pseudocode is not like one function, then they're expecting you to like break into multiple different functions, write classes, and make sure it's object or like design patterns are there. You won't need very complicated design patterns if they're asking you to code, but I think something like a factory pattern or MVC should be good enough. I think you should suffice. You don't need anything more than that. And they would expect also, I think that's about it actually. Clean code, data structures, and communication. Are you communicating well? Like your thoughts, how you're converting, why you're using a class, and why, what are this each objects representing. So make sure you communicate all the while.
Thank you, Moni. And my last question, please. It's common to have this with the team. I thought I saw other companies to send the test to and give 1 hour or 2 hours to solve that. For example, HackerRank, you can solve the challenge and that's all. But it was very interesting. making with all the team. I don't know if that is common.
It's actually different companies are doing many things differently. So some people just do it like the Amazon way. Some companies do it this interview way, team way. I think it's actually pretty cool if you if you get to meet the team. Because you also want to see like how the team is. You can ask them questions. Make sure you go with a lot of questions about the team, about the company, about the culture. Research a little bit, like and ask them like difficult questions, right? Like things that are important to you, work-life balance, how much do they work over the weekend, how is the on-call rotation, and then just see if you like the team, because I think it's actually pretty cool if you get to meet the team.
Thank you, Monil.
Okay, so Rubens.
Monil, I have a. I heard you mention about the commitment of 2 weeks, and I was wondering, what's the best advice you have for to do or not to do during those 2 weeks? One point I think it's important because, for example, I work as everyone here. We work all the day, and so it's for me. For example, I think it would be good if I keep these hours during the mornings, during my mornings, and just for you to understand my context. But I want to hear from you what you think is important or to do and not to do during these 2 weeks. What you think?
God, so I'm not sure which 2 weeks you're referring to. What I was
2 weeks?
asking.
No, sorry, 2 months. Sorry.
Oh, 2 months. Yes, yes, yes. So I I personally, so I have a kid, and I had a full-time job before this, and preparing for interviews, like when I did it, that oh, I will do it, I'll figure it out day over day. It was really hard for me to do that, because I would think I will do it in the evening, and then I come in the evening and I feel very tired and I don't do it, and then it happens every day. The easiest thing I have found in my cohort that people do, and I have personally found, is just setting one time. Like, hey, I will, if you can wake up, let's say you wake up at 7 a.m., and you have time from 7 to 8, you can say that, hey, I will do one problem from 7 to 8. If you have 30 minutes or 40, you will need 30 to 45 minutes. Otherwise, it's not enough time to solve a problem unless it's an easy problem. So try to find like one time slot where you have 30 to 45 minutes to solve a problem. And if you can't solve a problem, then you'll have to come back to it. So you'll have to find some time to come back to that problem. But basically, to be successful in those 2 months, I would say, one, pick a time during the day that you think, like 90% of the time you won't be bothered or nothing will come up. If something comes up, that's fine. And second is like do weekly and daily commitments. Like make sure you do those every day. I will remind you, but I can only push so far. So I'll try to push as much as I can. But if you make sure that you check in, you will, in 2 days, if you don't make progress, you will make progress the third day.
Okay, and not to do. Do you have anything?
Not to do. I would say don't. If don't miss check-ins. People, the reason people miss check-ins, and this is I have asked many times, is because they feel bad that, oh, I didn't do it today. If I submit on Slack that I didn't do, it'll post and everyone will see that. It's okay if you can't do it. It's more important to realize that you were not able to do it, and that's why check-ins are so always like the opposite is true. Like just don't miss your check-ins, and don't worry if you're unable to solve any problems or not able to understand a pattern. The first time you solve it, it is going to be hard. I can guarantee you that it will not come easy. The second time you solve it, it is going to be hard. The third and the fourth time might potentially be hard, but it'll get easier. Once this When I try to solve the problem these days, it's very natural to me because I have been doing this patterns for many times. and it will get there. It just, you have to be patient for that.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, we can do one more question if anyone has it.
Yep, because we are on time. Daniel.
Okay. So Monil, how many problems do you think or would you recommend us to be able to solve daily or by a week in order to achieve success by the end of your program?
So I usually, the way I keep it is I keep in the beginning of the program, for every easy problem, I give 30 minutes, right? I say that, hey, someone who knows the basic concepts but has not solved this for a while will take 30 minutes to solve this problem. And for mediums, I give 1 hour. So if we are doing, the program is designed for 8 hours a week. So I essentially give you 6 to 7 problems a week, and then 1 hour is for your mock interview. So that's how I design it. Now I also give extra problems because some people have more time and they're like, oh, I want to do extra problems. So you can, definitely go more. I don't have a very good answer to that question, like how many you should solve, because it all depends on when that pattern clicks to you. For some people, it takes about 60 to 70 problems for all the topics. For some people, it takes more than 100 problems. Like 100 is actually a good number, I would say. So sometimes one pattern might be very natural to you. You might be like, oh, I know linked list so easy. It's so easy that I don't have to do many problems for this. But like, for example, BFS and DFS are very tricky for me. So I might have to do more problems on that. So that would be my answer. And if you are out of problems, or if you are like, hey, this pattern is still not sticking, talk to me, and I can tell you if you should stick on this pattern or should you move forward. Because like, for example, if you cannot do recursion, right? Let's say recursion is not, you're not confident on recursion, there's no point moving to trees and graphs, because trees and graphs, it's all about recursion on like DFS. You're going to have a very hard time solving many of those problems. So I might just tell you like, hey, let's do this. Let's actually focus on recursion, and then we will move to trees and graphs. Does that answer the question?
Yes. Thank you.
Cool. Well, it was really, really nice meeting all of you. I hope you decide to join the program. It's free for 7 days, for 10 days. We will give you until, like, if you join on 23rd, then until 1st, you don't owe us anything. Join it. You will, the reason it's 10 days is because I realized in the cohort that it takes time for people to know if they like it, or is the pace okay for them? Is it too fast? Is it too slow? So I don't want to take money if you're not finding value in this. So take your time, join it. If you think like, hey, this is not something I like, no harm, no foul. You're free to leave. You will have a new community. Awana is a great community. You can meet new people. If you like it, then we would always love to have you on our team.
Yes. Thank you very much, Monil, and we hope to see you, everybody, in the camp.
Thank you so much to all of you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Enjoy, guys. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Thanks, Monil.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.